Okay. Subsidiary motions. These are motions that handle the motion before the body. Just as the privilege motions did not handle the motion before the body, these motions do. A motion has been made to have a party on next Saturday. You was to specify that the party started 9 p.m. and ended 2 a.m. How do you add the times that you desire to the motion? And those are the choices on the side. What do you do to that motion to add those times to the question before the body? No, that's used for a different reason. Amend, yes. Amend. To modify the wording of a pending motion before the motion itself is acted upon. And you would simply say, I move to amend the pending motion by adding the words from 9 o'clock to 2 a.m., on next Saturday. And then what happens, that's a primary or a first degree amendment. Parliamentary procedure allows you to have no more than 2 amendments to a motion, because that's 3 things in front of you. And after that, it gets too complicated. So you could have a motion, you can have an amendment to the motion, and you can have an amendment to the amendment. You vote in the opposite order. You vote on the amendment to the amendment first. If that wording is accepted, that becomes a part of the primary amendment. Then you vote on the primary amendment. If that wording is accepted, then that becomes a part of the main motion. And then you vote on the main motion. If that's accepted, then you have the main motion accepted with the amendment, as presented. Yes, ma'am.
So what you're saying is when someone offers an amendment, you first of all have to ascertain whether or not individuals actually want that amendment to be inserted into the main motion.
Yes.
And a lot of people think that if we vote on that amendment, that that's it.
No.
And they don't understand.
Yeah. If you have a motion and an amendment, you've got to have at least 2 votes. The amendment and the motion. If you got a motion, a primary amendment, and a secondary amendment, you have 3 votes. And the action you take depends upon how each of those votes turns out. It could be that the body turns down the secondary amendment. At that point, that's dead. And all you have in front of you then is the motion and the primary amendment. And they may turn down the primary amendment. If that happens, that's dead. And you're back to the drawing board with the motion. At which point, somebody else might make a different primary amendment. And somebody else might then modify that with a different secondary amendment. It's not real complicated, but it does mean you have to keep track of what's going on.
So an example of that would be if I wanted the party to be from 2 to 3 a.m. And then somebody else wanted it to be 10 to 1 a.m. That's how it can change into different stages.
Yeah. If they accepted your secondary amendment, that would, and the body agreed to that,
and that's it.
That would automatically wipe out the primary amendment.
Right. Okay.
And then what the amendment you made would then be added to the main motion, and the main motion is voted on, which is to have the party in the first place.
Right.
Okay. It requires a second. It is debatable. It is amendable, and requires a majority vote. Now, there's a special case of amendment called the substitute motion. Let's say that when the groups discussed having a party on Saturday night, you don't want to have a party. Your philosophy is that AARP is about social action. You want to have a breakfast for those persons in the old folks' home. That has nothing to do with what the body's discussing. But that's what you want to do rather than what they're discussing. So you make what's called a substitute motion, which is a special case of amendment. If your substitute motion is accepted by the body, that replaces the main motion and totally changes what was before the body in the first place. The substitute motion is used to replace the words under consideration with an entirely new set of words. A motion to amend seeks to retain the basic motion on the floor, but to modify it in some way. A substitute motion seeks to throw out the basic motion on the floor and substitute a new and different motion for it. And the language is, I move to substitute for the pending motion the following, and then you state what the following is. Requires a second, debatable, it's amendable, requires a majority vote. A motion is on the floor to spend $500 to purchase a new computer for the organization's office. The treasurer has not as yet arrived, and no report has been given on the condition of the organization's finances. How do you postpone action on the computer purchase to after the treasurer arrives and makes his report?
Commit or refer.
No, commit or refer is a different reason. We'll see that a little later on.
To a certain time?
Yes, ma'am. Going to postpone the motion actually being discussed to a certain time. And that time, of course, would be until after the treasurer makes his report. I'm sorry. In this case, I decided to make it lay on the table.
But hers would be.
Hers would also be correct. Yes, yes. Postpone to a certain time and lay on the table are very similar. When you lay something on the table, what you're doing is conforming to the rule in the very beginning that says you only do one thing at a time. Since the treasurer's not there, you're going to lay this question on the table until after the treasurer makes his report. But postpone to certain times we use also.
Let me ask this question. So if the motion were to lay on the table, would you have to specify, well, even if you specify until after the treasurer gave the report, after the treasurer gave the report, then you would still have to go back
Yes.
and move that it be removed from the table?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Postpone to a certain time would save you the problem of having to go back and to bring the question back up from the table. Because once something's put on the table, it stays there until it's brought back up. And that takes another motion. If the motion to postpone to a certain time instead were used, when that time comes, then the matter automatically becomes up because it's almost like a special order. Lay on the table, lay the pending question aside temporarily when something more urgent has arisen, when another report or action is needed before the action can be taken on the pending question. I move to lay on the table, the latest question on the table, you don't have to specify why. You can specify why, but at some later time, it must be taken back up from the table if that's the motion that you use.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
another question. So, at the point where you want to take this question from the table, would that be considered out of order? How do you know that at that point it's in order?
You could make a motion to take it from the table anytime you wanted to.
Okay. And it would not be ruled out of order?
It would not be, the chair could not rule it out of order. I can't think of any circumstance under which the chair could rule it out of order unless it was laid on the table to a certain time past the current meeting.